Eagle 6 in the turn.
Roger.
Viper 1 bombs away. One's going to climb high above 20 east to south.
Eagle 6 radar contact. Eagle 6 is visual.
Planet goes left.
Well, hello and welcome back to the DCS SITREP, the in-depth news show on all things DCS World, which is the world's premier combat flight simulator for the home PC. It's brought to you by Igor Dynamics, and I'm your host, Prickly Hedgehog, once again this week. Today, we take a look at ED's blurb on the latest patch delay and some observations about core DCS features frustrating some DCS players. The game is under a lot of scrutiny right now, in part, I believe, because of very, very high expectations for products within it, which is legit when you look at products like the Phantom 2's release from Heat Blur Simulations. However, we also have a growing mob of conspiracy theory-minded people determined to ferret out the truth behind the conflict between ED and Razbam, and are going to some pretty dark places to do so. We have growing mistrust, anger, and frustration, which mean it doesn't matter what ED says, or more importantly, doesn't say. This seems to only fuel speculation. So unfortunately, I feel this patch delay came at a bad time for ED as they try to do some damage control with regards to some feelings in the community right now, which is proving to be really increasingly difficult for the team, which is obviously not good for the community in general.
Station time, 5 minutes to pushing up, reference 0.85.
Well, let's focus on the statements from ED that we can at least analyze, which hopefully will shed light on what went wrong. And once again, the big patch, again slated for last month, was delayed for the third time as ED ran into more stop bugs, forcing them to hold off on launching the patch live. The initial aim, remember, was to plug in the Chinook, several campaigns, and a large number of fixes on June 26th. This also included F-15E fans out there, repairs to the radar, which has in fact stopped working. Now that was actually built-in coding based on a timer, apparently by Galanet, the radar's designer. Some suggested it was a coding bomb of some kind, but comments about the issue refute that, with the author indicating it was something of a marker for him if no further development occurred or ensued on a future date that he stipulated, and then the air-to-air radar would stop working. Unfortunately, of course, that date came and went, and so ipso facto, the radar stopped working in air-to-air mode. The temporary solution was to roll the desktop date back for those who were determined to have that feature in the module. Obviously, this isn't an ideal long-term stopgap, and as we know, currently there's no full-on, if you like, or Razbam endorsed, if you like, work going on as this behind closed doors conflict occurs between the two teams. So the F-15E, the Harrier, and the Mirage are not receiving the usual updates that we would expect as part of developmental processes. This includes things that occur with regards to bugs when new patches are implemented. The good news, though, and I think this is interesting, the fact that the ED are actually working on a fix for the radar gives us a rather large sliver of hope, I think, in a series of PR challenges for ED right now, which are made worse, as I said, perhaps, by this latest patch's inability to be implemented. It's a really difficult time, I think, for the team with the community in the state that it is. It's really unfortunate. Now, as a result, and in full fairness to ED, they elected to provide an explanation as to why things haven't gone to plan this month and last month. It hasn't stopped, unfortunately, as I'm indicating, a plethora of conspiracy theories about the state of DCS world. So let's take a look at what they actually said in their blurb this week as part of the newsletter. So the next update for version 2.9.6 has been delayed and is currently in heavy testing and bug fixing. That's good news. They wish to sincerely apologize for any inconvenience this may have caused. It is very important for us to release updates, they said, with as few issues as possible, and this extra time is genuinely required to deliver a quality product. Cool. Okay. So the initial aim, as we've described, was to basically release this massive update June 26. And the announcement was made back in March 2024 and also in April that this patch was coming. Despite the short time frame for such a large release, they were confident that they could do it based on past development experience. Indeed, they reached their internal goal and completed the roadmap that they had set for themselves and added additional functionality to both the DCS CH-47F, or the Chinook, and also the Afghanistan map. However, they described they had some unforeseen events preventing them from meeting the schedule, and they would like to share with us what caused this current delay. So we're all ears here. So as you may know, they described we generally release one new aircraft module or map per DCS update. Yep, that's known. Really more. In general, it takes about a month between releases to prepare for the next one. So starting in May, they release products twice a month. The Kohler map, the F4E Phantom 2 by Heatblur. Kohler, remember, is an Orbix product. And then not long on the heels of that, we had the OH-58D or the Kiowa Warrior. This is a Polychop product. These were planned to be topped with the DCS Afghanistan map and the Chinook, and also Flaming Cliffs 2024, which we've been discussing over the last few weeks, with each product having their own specific features requiring careful integration into DCS world. This is on top of also things like the new airboss station for the supercarrier, with many new module features, and bug fixes, as well as substantial improvements to the DCS core. Great news. So Eagle Dynamics then said we overestimated our capacity to meet the challenge that they had set upon themselves, and they are hopeful that you'll understand the decision not to release the patch. So here is the event timeline for the delayed 2.9.6 update, they said.
4 and 5, roger.
So they announced the delay in the 21st of June newsletter, and the decision to postpone the release was made based on 19 critical issues or stoppers related to the DCS core. So supercarrier, the Chinook, the F-16C, the F-18, and the F-4E. Normally, they have around 5 to 8 stoppers a week, so they had more than double the usual ones that they expect to squash. By June 26, the date set for the release, the list of stoppers had actually increased to 25 related to the products that we just mentioned. In addition, they found issues with the Viggen, the F5E Tiger II, and then the Flaming Cliffs 2024 product, and also the new launcher that we had mentioned recently as well. That was going to be part of the new interface, remember. So by Tuesday, the 2nd of July, there was a tremendous job done and had been accomplished by the team, and most of the issues were resolved. Nevertheless, the decision was made that the Chinook should have additional time for content preparation, which I think is a smart move. I'm very, very surprised they didn't do any content preparation for this. I think, in fairness, I think that was a poor decision. It's a popular module. It's one that I think needed more showcasing. Sure, we've seen some videos, we've seen some pictures, etc., but as many of you noticed, there wasn't any work from WAGs. WAGs has been fairly quiet lately. As I said last week, there could be a number of reasons for that. There could be personal reasons too, I don't know. And nothing to do necessarily even with the conspiracy theorists regarding Eagle Dynamics and Razbam and all the rest of it. It could be completely unrelated to that. That won't stop people from guessing. But nonetheless, I think it was not a good decision to not have content prepped already for the Chinook. So be it. They're working on that. Good idea. More detailed testing required as well, they said. Moving on. Everything was moving smoothly, they said, when a new set of issues reared their heads. This is often the way in software development, as many of the software engineers and developers have been posting regularly on the channel. I really appreciate that kind of feedback. My brother's a software engineer. He talks about this kind of stuff all the time. My favorite saying from his was when software engineers get together and complain that something isn't working, one of them will say, it works on my rig. So yeah, these things happen, right? So with the new set of issues, they subsequently resolved some of them on the 3rd of July. So we're talking very tight time frames here. And they were poised to deliver the update together with the full list of fixes, improvements, and new products as described. However, here we go. On the morning of the 4th of July, the QA team said, we've got some new stoppers related to the AI aircraft, in addition to a broken campaign. And so the decision was to delay the release even more. They had to. they've gone on to say here that they know that this is a very eagerly awaited update and that it will provide a lot of new and great stuff for consumers, including, as we mentioned before, the fix to the F-15E Strike Eagle radar. However, they said in good conscience, we simply could not let this go out as is. I think clearly a very wise decision. Damned if you do, damned if you don't. Which is the more bitter pill to swallow? Obviously, releasing it would have been, even though it sucks, and they still have to face some backlash from the community for the release delay, but much worse for them to have released it, obviously. So, a new date is going to be announced soon on the Discord and other social media channels, so we'll stick around and keep our eyes peeled for that. They have high confidence in the patch. They'd like to thank the community and the third-party developers, especially Heatblur, for their cooperation, rapid feedback, and updates on their aircraft. Remember that aircraft is pretty sophisticated. It's using some things that haven't been done before in DCS world, including the UI system that they have. Remember, that was one of the stumbling blocks for Heatblur and its release of their aircraft on time, which took, I think it was about a 4 to 6 week delay on their initial release, which was set back in March from memory. So I think it came in May. So this is not an unusual phenomena, and in fairness, ED admitted they got over enthusiastic about their ability to release all of these products at the same time and fix all these bugs that were cropping up at the same time. So as part of that, the whole team at Eagle Dynamics wishes to apologize for the inconvenience and undertake to do their very best. Cool. All right. That's a good explanation, I think. It won't satiate everybody's demands and won't answer everybody's questions, and it won't please some people who don't care what ED says right now. They're determined to burn the institution down and are fishing for things that I find almost a little bit repulsive in some instances. So as I've said several times this year, the pipeline of projects which kind of converged into 2024 was always going to be a big challenge for ED to manage. It just was. Anyone with common sense looking at the number of projects that were coming out this year, I was genuinely surprised that they were going to try and do them all. And we're talking the Chinook, we're talking the MiG-29, the delay in the Phantom 2, for example, and then hot on the heels of that, we've been waiting for this for a long, long time, and that was the Kiowa as well. So I was surprised that all of these projects were being bumped into the pipeline in pretty rapid succession. The Kohler map, for example, and all these other improvements that they need to make. I don't recall so many projects coming online in a single year in the franchise's recent history. And we're not even talking about core improvements as well that we're waiting for, such as Vulkan API, which I don't think is going to be introduced this year, unless something really amazing happens in terms of time being free and all that kind of stuff as well. So as the blurb described, they effectively got overambitious in what they thought they could implement in this round of patch implementations, removing conflicts within the franchise and the vitriol surrounding it right now. This issue, at best, is likely just a cock-up, right? Under the umbrella, though, of all these swirling frustrations that are going on right now in the community, then for some, it morphs into this unequivocal evidence of Eagle Dynamics malfeasance inherent in its business practices, which I think is a very, very big stretch. There's nothing wrong with being frustrated. There's nothing wrong with being angry. And I think ED, sure, has some things to work on. I'm not suggesting at all that ED shouldn't be held accountable for cock-ups or poor business decisions. Say, for example, a few years ago, they publicly acknowledged that the F-16C rollout was definitely a failure. Wags acknowledged that in an interview, and I forget who was interviewing him at the time. And he was asked directly, what's one thing you did that you regret? And that was, he said, the rollout of the F-16 and the way it was done. So they're capable of learning. That won't satiate, again, some people's frustration right now. There are projects which seem to be taking much longer than they should. The supercarrier being one of those. That's generated a lot of issues. And also the long-standing issues with the AI overhaul. I think that is those are a couple of areas that do need a lot of ED attention. A couple of productive videos released recently highlight some inconsistencies, again, with which ED do need to address. And I think that has become the growing focus, as I said, of broader player frustration and within the broader player base in the community. One of them, as I said, is the AI behavior. And there was an interesting video showcased by Fly and Wire regarding SAM launches, and he points out that the AI has ridiculous SA, and that within a group of target AI aircraft, which are flying in tight formation, only the targeted planes begin evasive maneuvers. In other words, they know, well, within the 16 aircraft that are flying here, I'm the one that's being eyed up by the SAM, so I'm going to begin evasive maneuvers, notching or what have you, which he argues poorly mirrors real-world behavior of a group of aircraft who become aware as a collective that a SAM has been launched. Some pilots may not even see it because it's on their view is blocked of it, and another pilot in the swag or gaggle of aircraft says, hey, SAM launch, 3 o'clock low, whatever it is, and then everybody starts reacting because who knows who's being targeted specifically by the missile, assuming that it even has locked onto a particular aircraft. So then the AI aircraft also appear to know when they've been notched by a missile, when they've notched a missile, I should say, as well, and then the threat has been mitigated, if you like. So that kind of mirrors another interesting video on notching in general by Prez, titled The Actual Real Truth Behind the Notch in DCS World. That video highlights the overly potent RWR in some of the aircraft as a tool for pinpointing missile threats, and the ability of human players to unlock the secret to notching with such effectiveness that you can largely avoid missiles altogether. And also, he highlighted some deficiencies of missiles like the AIM-120 Seeker Head to properly track and proximity detonate near a target to either cause damage or get a kill. Another interesting video. So there's some good stuff going on with the community out there that raises some awareness to some of these things. A couple of caveats here I think we should consider when we talk about these projects and these issues with DCS World. The overall catchphrase from ED, though, with regards to weapons, is none of them in the game are endorsed or represent real-world products and are represented in the game for entertainment purposes. Some people take umbrage with that. I think there's a real-world reason for that. Years ago, that disclaimer wasn't even on the loading page, but it's been a disclaimer on the loading screen for quite a few years now. In effect, we likely have to take some of the missile representation with a little bit of a grain of salt. And indeed, WAGs, when talking about BVR representation, that they are conscious of not producing a platform that could be used as a training mechanism for opposing forces by getting into too much tactical realism with that function within the game. And he said that on the Mover and Gonki show some months back. This one changed, of course, some frustration in the player versus player environments. And of course, the AI is notoriously clunky in certain regimes. It's a known problem. The reality is a lot of this stuff is top secret. So that's why there's representation rather than realism, mimicking rather than, again, the realism. And 99, to his credit, actually commented on Fly on Wire's video that he would pass this info on to the AI development team for attention because they have made some updates to the AI. They're trying to work on those issues, but clearly it's not where it should be, and obviously not at a pace of development that, again, is going to satiate many of us in the community's immediate needs for improved realism in this area. Now, how far that realism can go, as I'm hinting at here, is a tricky question, as described. I mean, I know, for example, that regular guest on the 10% True podcast, Starbaby, who's a former F4 and F-15 EWIZO, pointed out that DCS is really incapable of truly representing, at least in an electronic suppressed environment, in a way that it would encourage him to fly the game. It's just simply not realistic. The data's not there. The way in which some of these systems work are highly secretive, even decades-old systems. So Fly on Wire said, too, that they recognize limitations in creating real-world scenarios using a video game as well. So that was their caveat. So there's a certain amount of suspension of disbelief in all of this. This doesn't invalidate people's raised concerns, but it's, again, difficult to know how far ED can realistically recreate weapon systems and sensor systems with the level of accuracy or expectation of accuracy that some in the community want. And indeed, it can get tricky. Casmo had an issue when he was producing videos for the Apache, and the Department of Defense was looking over his videos to make sure he wasn't revealing tactical secrets that he's not authorized to release, right? And since then, his videos have been deemed fine, but that is the inherent reality of this game. Ward Carroll said that if DCS was available in the late 80s, it would be top secret. So there's a limitation to how much ED can realistically do without insulting everybody's intelligence, right? And I think some of the community needs to recognize that. And it's a real tightrope, I think. Nonetheless, it's fair to say that the AI definitely needs work. It is something that ED is aware of. It's working on it. Personally, I think it's something that they need to prioritize a little bit more, just to boost the faith that the community needs in some of the development processes in the game. We're seeing a lot of parallel comparisons to Falcon 4 right now, and the way that its AI functions. And I've seen other videos too highlighting, again, deficiencies with the AI in DCS in certain flight regimes, BFM, ACM, whatever else you want to call it, compared to Falcon 4. So again, I think, yeah, fair call. It definitely is something that needs work. This is a complex topic. We could talk about this forever and get into all sorts of rabbit holes. But I think in summation this week, ED has some challenges in managing the large number of projects it currently has on its plate. I think that's fair. It also has some real challenges in managing the fallout from the internal conflicts with one of its third-party developers, which unfortunately have become public, and which some members of the community are determined to exacerbate with some pretty wild behavior, I have to say. It's extremely unfortunate that the patch delay occurred when it did, but as I theorized earlier, I suspect it could be a blip in the timeline in the grand scheme of things. Remember, it was only a few weeks ago that people were telling me that they had no faith in Polychop, that the development process was a disaster, we'll never see the module in game, it's vaporware, blah, 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 blah. And upon release, I'm not really hearing any more complaints anymore. So the mob is fickle, it seems. I think some people need to ask themselves whether they support the vision for helping build a fantastic combat flight simulator, which I think this franchise can be, or do you just want to burn it down? I'm sticking with it, and producing these videos is purely for fun, as I think there's a wide scope for all sorts of players to enjoy the game, even as it stands right now with its faults and imperfections. It's definitely not perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but can we help ED build a better franchise in a constructive way, or do we invest a lot of negative energy in telling them that they suck every day and still expecting them to improve on it when, the beatings will continue until morale improves kind of philosophy? I think that'll do. Let's hope the patch drops soon and the Chinook videos arrive showcasing something to get excited about again, and that we also have some direct improvements in those areas that I've already highlighted that need work. Thanks for the support of late. It's really encouraging. It's really pleasing. Don't forget to like and subscribe. I really appreciate all of the community feedback. We'll see you next time on the DCS SITREP. This is Prickly Hedgehog out.
Fort 5, focus, pop-up bogey, bullseye 012 for 66, southbound, low, fast.
Fort 5, roger.
Fort 5, you are cleared to engage those bandits.
Fort 5.
We've got a Tiger, 2 o'clock, 2 miles, 12 o'clock, 5 miles. Okay, he's 5 o'clock now, 5 o'clock now. Right 5 miles, 11,500. 12 o'clock now. Right 5 degrees, 10 miles, 7,500.
Fox 2. /1 Tiger.
He's right in front of us.
Fort 5, clear the area, reference 180.
Heading 180, Fort 5.